Hello and welcome back to the channel. Thank you for joining me in another of my wonderful interviews. Now you may remember 10 weeks ago, I think it was, we had a gentleman here, otherwise known as Rob the Rat Catcher, who was investigating Portsmouth City Council and reporting that 6,000 unpaid council taxes people who had not paid their council tax, 6,000 had gone to court and within 15 minutes had managed somehow to single file shuffle through in front of the judge and have a liability order put against them, and now are all desperately trying to pay it off, or not, as the case may be. Rob, welcome to the show. Lovely to have you back.
Thank you for having me.
It's nice to see you again, Rob. Now, I understand that actually it wasn't 6,000 people, that it was a little bit more than 6,000 people.
Yes, as part of my ongoing court case, I requested the final amount of people that were summoned by the council, not the magistrates' court. And the council have confirmed in writing that the total sum for that 15 minutes, or that afternoon if you like, was 7,246 persons summoned.
So an extra over an extra 1,000 people, and in 15 minutes, is that the sort of thing it is?
We attended at 2 o'clock, and the first 7,243 were dealt with in 15 minutes. And myself, another gentleman, and a lady who stayed to challenge the council tax were there for a further hour and 3/4 for just the three of us. So we were roughly 40 minutes per person. But the other 7,243 were done within 15 minutes.
So that does seem a bit, that was a bit quick. They weren't there. I mean, I laughingly said that they shuffled in one after the other, which in theory they could have done. If they'd all turned up, would they have to be seen?
Some of the people did actually turn up.
Did they?
Yes, but what's happening with the people who do turn up, except for the three who were a bit more determined to challenge it? The council meet you at 1 o'clock for a 2 o'clock hearing, and they decide or talk you out of staying.
They talk you out?
Yeah, they talk you out of staying because they don't obviously want people staying, because if it's 40 minutes per person.
Yeah.
If it's 40 minutes per person and there's 10 people, that's the whole day gone. So.
But you see, this is where I find all of this very confusing, because you said the council talk you out of it, not the court.
No, because it's not a court of law. It's a hired court, which we have proof of. And not only do we have proof of it in Portsmouth, we have proof that it's happening in every magistrates' court in England.
Which is astonishing, because you would imagine the court is supposed to be independent. So where I get confused is that the claimant is doing the negotiation with the people saying they don't bother to come into the courtroom, but that's in the court's favour. And even if now a friend of mine has got a court case going on for non-payment of council tax,
Yep.
we know it came from the council, but it pretends it's come from the court. And so if you didn't know, you'd think it was from the court, and then it says talk to the claimant about whether you've got an appointment or not. So if you switch that to a different type of case, that say it's a murder case, you've been accused of murder, you effectively are talking to the victim of the murder who's bringing the case and say, is it all right if I come to court so that you can have a go at me? I mean, that's the sort of weird and wacky logic that we're under, isn't it?
Yeah, well, an interesting thing happened last Wednesday that we attended a bulk listing, not me personally, but I was there to witness the bulk listing. And what's happening currently in Portsmouth Magistrates Court, the council are hiring the court for the afternoon, 2 till 4, roughly. But what they're doing is, because we are auditing the courts, they're now taking the persons who appear to represent themselves into a separate floor of the court. And we are banned from attending that area because they're having private chats. And one of the chaps that had a private chat told me on Wednesday of last week that the council said to him that if he didn't agree to their terms, they were going to put him in prison. So obviously he agreed to their terms because they terrified the chap.
Yes. And can they do that? Can they put them in prison?
In England, they can for 3 months, but it's very rare that it happens nowadays.
And what would be the charge for that?
Well, it's a civil case heard in a criminal court, which is not a court because it's a hired courtroom with a hired judge. So technically, they have no powers to send you to court, but people have
To prison.
People have been to prison for non-payment of council tax in England only. It's the only place in the United Kingdom that applies. So obviously justice in the UK is not equal, which it should be.
Well, so what's happened since you went to Portsmouth then?
Oh, thousands of things. It's absolutely fascinating what we've been up to. I don't think we're exactly popular at the minute. So what?
Why does that not surprise me?
Well, I'm not an unfriendly chap. But what's been happening is we've found out through multiple different sources throughout England that the courts are hired.
Yeah.
The other thing that we found out was that the security guards in these magistrates' courts, who are employed by OCS Limited, are hiding their badges. Now, their badges are SIA registered licences, and it's a criminal offence not to show your identity licence / badge. Now, because the courts are not courts and the security guards are not showing their identification cards because they know it's the council that are holding the courts, we have gotten involved in several incidents where a member of our team was assaulted by a security guard without their licence being shown, and currently the police are doing nothing about it. Now, if we had assaulted a security guard, it would be the shoe on the other foot. We would have been charged with assault. But the police, being a corporation, dealing with a corporation, have decided to side with their fellow corporation. So we're getting no justice currently. Whether we approach the council, whether we approach the magistrates' court, whether we approach the Ministry of Justice, as we have all done as auditors, and no one is currently interested, because the truth, when we get to the truth, is horrendous.
So what, I mean, the people watching this will be going, well, A, this is not justice,
Yep.
And B, what can we do to stop this and correct things?
So when we get onto the main part of the story for today, I'll talk people through what's wrong and how to correct it.
Right.
So it is correctable if people take the time out to challenge what's currently happening. And when you do challenge it, they are not going to be happy when the truth comes out.
So let me ask you this. People are, we're coming to the end now of the payment in England. I don't know how it works in Scotland, but in England and Wales, we're coming pretty much to the end of the last payment for council tax would be January. Then there's a couple of months grace because they charge you for 10 months instead of the 12 unless you change your thing. Mm-hmm. However, it's done. And then so April comes, the April Fool's Day comes along, and that comedy bill arrives on the mat saying, we are here to extort money from you. We could be a burger company, but we're just calling ourselves a council, and you have to pay, otherwise we take you to court. People, if they don't pay, they, like in the case of my friend, they'll end up in this bulk hearing, and they'll get the summons. And what can they do? Is it better to be in court, or is it better just to let that process go so that your name disappears in the bulk hearing because it's not a real court hearing? Mm-hmm. Because if you write to the court and say, actually, do I have a hearing here? They've no idea.
No, they'll tell you they don't. They tell you they don't know anything about it because it's not the court that's higher. It's not the court that's summoning the people to the court.
So to my question then is it better to challenge the whole thing if you get those letters, or is it better just to let it do its course, goes through the bulk hearing, comes out the other end, in which then they're either saying to the enforcement agents you've got to pay, or you're getting demanding letters, or however it works?
So one of the judges that we went to said that the fact that you turned up meant that you were acquiescing and you were taking part in their process.
Yeah.
But again, the process itself is fake. So I don't know how you can acquiesce on something that's fake.
I have heard that as well from one of my viewers, saying that the very fact that you turn up in court is that you've agreed to the process, and so then you are processable. Whereas if you don't, you're effectively saying, well, you haven't got any jurisdiction with me, and therefore...
I think that's a multi-headed coin. It's if you're summoned by a court and you go along to a court, then you're acquiescing. If you're summoned by a council to a fake court, what are you acquiescing to?
Yes.
You're not actually taking part in any judicial process. So I would say that the information that judge passed on that day was false, plus it was the same judge that heard the 7,243 people in 15 minutes.
All right. Shall we move on to some of the evidence and stuff that you...
Yeah, I'd like to show people what we've uncovered. This information comes in part from a gentleman called Ian Stewart, who's spent 24 years of his life looking at this information. We've only spent 4 of mine, and it's been a long 4 years, I have to say.
So, let's have a look at the first bit of paperwork that you've sent in. So, tell us about this.
So, the UK justice, it's an illusion. There is no such a thing as justice in the United Kingdom. It's a fallacy. If you look at the top section, it's Magna Carta, and it's the Charter of Freedoms. Now, a lot of people will argue that the Magna Carta only has 4 sections currently in the law books, and that's not true, because the Magna Carta on the 15th of June 1215 was sealed in perpetuity, which means it was sealed by a king's seal, King John, and King John sealed it forevermore. Multiple people have tried to change it, including some popes, believe it or not, because it was sealed in perpetuity by King John. But they can't change it. Once you've got a king's seal on a document, it's there forever. So all 63 clauses are valid, which I'm sure the black belt barrister will tell you is not true, because I see you did get a mention from him recently.
Yes, he has commented on my videos.
Yeah, but I see he backtracked somewhat on the last video, which is interesting, because his information, or the information that he gives, is not legal advice. So that's good. It's nice of him to say that with his disclaimer, whereas we're going to tell you the truth. And you can make up your mind to what's true and what is not true. Again, this is not legal advice.
Right, entertainment only, as they say. Right, okay, so the Magna Carta, as you've got there, sealed in perpetuity.
Yep. So there are 4 superior statutes in the United Kingdom. That means they supersede every other statute ever made. You've got the Coronation Act, 1688. You've got the Bill of Rights, 1689. The Act of Settlement in 1700. The Act of the Union is not a superior statute, but it was when Scotland joined England. I hasten to add, not voluntarily. The Treason Act of 1795, which is a superior statute, and the Act of the Union, where Ireland joined the English and Scotland unity. When you look at those 4 superior statutes, they overrule everything else, and will come along to 72 and 73, which we discussed in the last show, which will explain the council tax to people better, I think if they follow it. And all this information is available on the internet, but I have printed it off for the show today, so we can talk through it and people can find it for themselves. It's easy enough to find.
Okay, so they're the superior statutes.
Yep. So when you look at the Werner report, or Werner, I don't know how you pronounce it, because it was the Prime Minister of Luxembourg that wrote a letter to Edward Heath and Margaret Thatcher back in 1968 to 70. He wrote telling Edward Heath that if they joined the common market, it was going to be an act of treason against the British people.
Why would it be an act of treason?
Because Edward Heath did not have the power to take the United Kingdom or the monarch out of the judicial system of the United Kingdom into the European Union or the common market without a referendum.
Right.
And he did it knowing that it was treasonous, as did Margaret Thatcher. So she was a junior minister at the time and he was the Prime Minister. But again, when you look at his history, it's a very interesting history when you look at Edward Heath. He had a pensions for young boys.
Yes.
Allegedly.
Yes. Okay. So the Werner report said it was treason to take us out, but he did it.
He did it anyway, yeah. He knew what he was doing, and interestingly enough, as we discussed in the last show, the Local Government Act of 1972 made all councils in the United Kingdom corporations. And that, which surprised me, I couldn't find out why, but now I know, it was in preparation for joining the European Union on the 1st of January 73.
So they had to be corporations as opposed to bodies of men.
They couldn't be attached to
they
couldn't be attached to the English judicial system, so they took them out of it, and that's why council tax is fraud.
Right. Gosh.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
Absolutely fascinating. Right. Okay. Let's go on then. So, what happened next?
So Edward Heath took us out of took us into the common market on January the 1st, 1973, and in doing so, he removed the rights of the Queen. The Queen was deposed on January the 1st, 1973 by Edward Heath, the government at the time, and which included Margaret Thatcher. Now, he therefore committed treason against the Crown, treason against the country, and anything that he did after January the 1st, 1973 is therefore void, which makes all statutes, acts and everything else void, which I'm sure the Black Belt barrister will obviously dispute, and I'm welcome to challenge him on it.
And indeed, I mean, any other barrister or legal person who wants to challenge doesn't have to be that particular.
There's more than one available.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's really fascinating that after the 1st of January 1973, all acts and statutes are invalid.
Yep.
And yet, here we are, all happily or not happily, going along with it all, paying our inland revenue, we're paying tax, council tax, we're paying tax on our fuel, on our food, everywhere. If somebody dies, we pay inheritance tax, we're abiding to their rules and regulations, and we get stopped by the police if they come along and say, excuse me, have you got a license? I need to see all this. So how come all that time ago, I mean, we are 2023, what is that?
24.
Oh yes, 24.
You've lost a month.
I've lost a year, I tell you, doing this job. I've lost my hair, I've lost my dignity, I've lost everything. But yeah, how come, I mean, what's the maths of that? 70 years?
From 73 to 24 is 51.
51, there
51,
we go.
51 years.
I can't even add up now.
Yeah.
How come we're still doing it? How come this is a thing and that cleverer people have not already said this?
Cleverer people have said it, and cleverer people know the truth. They just are not going to put themselves out of a job. But what I put it down to is my grandparents and parents who thought they were doing the right thing and bringing us up in an education system which was not telling us the truth. So your grandparents and parents thought they were doing the right thing by telling you to save up and save for a rainy day and buy your own property, and it's all wrong, because when you don't do any of that, the state look after you. And if you have looked after yourself the way that they reckon you should, you're punished for it. They absolutely punish you into the ground and take everything off you which you've worked for, which is wrong.
And they're planning more of that in the future. Of
course,
of
absolutely.
taking everything.
Yes. This
is just you'll be happy and not own anything.
Yeah.
So so just go back there. The Queen in 1973, you said that she lost her powers.
Yeah, she was deposed.
Deposed.
She was deposed from monarch, and she was made head of state. Head of state means head of corporation. Head of corporations means she was the head of...
the Crown Corporation?
Yeah, Crown Corporation, yeah. Yeah, she was head of the actual corporation itself, the UK company.
Which presumably then Charles has taken that mantle on, has he? He's not what we think of the king.
Well, yeah, when you logically follow it through, Charles cannot be king.
Right.
And Camilla cannot be queen. Because the Queen was not queen after 73. She was head of state. Charles can be head of state, but Camilla cannot.
And that's why we saw those two chairs during the coronation that said, I can't remember what they said on them, but they were referred to as the chairs of the estate, not a throne
Yeah.
that a king would, and rightly, would sit on.
Yeah. So when you look at the things closer than just the pomp and pageantry, you can see the truth. And it takes a little bit of time to decipher the truth because it's hidden. But it's hidden in plain sight, which is fascinating because as far as I'm aware, these people cannot lie. But they deceive, which is not a lie. It's up to you to find the truth for yourself.
Right. Is that why in Parliament, they're not allowed to say to anybody, my honourable gentleman, they can't say that is a lie, but they say that is not the truth.
Well, none of them are honourable. Well, I take
Well,
that.
I know. I mean,
well,
I'm not suggesting for a moment that any of them are honourable.
I take
think
that back.
clearly
There's probably 5% that are honourable. The other 95% are
being bought and paid.
bought and paid for by the corporation. Yeah, they're not here for the people. They don't represent the people.
So let's move on then to more of what you've got here.
So that's the Theft Act of 1968. It's quite self-explanatory. If you cause theft, harm or loss, I would imagine that you're going to be punished for it. But that is an actual statute that's still valid because it's before 73. So it's something that's still in place. So you can be charged for theft. But again, that's just a minor thing when you look at the post office and the way it's been handled.
Right.
That's a bit of a scandal in itself. And people knew that the post office was a scandal. They knew. They just knew that it was going to bring down the post office if they exposed it. But to allow people to die, knowing that they were, or thinking that they were criminals when they weren't.
I know.
It's just, it's outrageous.
So we've got another.
This is the fascinating one.
This
So
is the one that's always quoted,
Yeah,
isn't it? If
this-
you say, how and where does the liability order come from? Why do we have to pay the council tax? And this is the thing that's always quoted, the Local Government Act of 1972.
Well, they refer to the Local Finance Act of 92.
Oh, do they?
But again, this is the Local Government Act of 72, which makes all councils corporations.
Oh, right. Okay. So I got
So this
slightly
is,
confused.
So
there.
this one's still valid
Right.
because it's pre-73.
Yeah.
But it makes every council in England a corporation, which you have to agree to be bound by. Now, if you have not bound yourself to signing a contract, you're not bound by it, which I'm sure a lot of people will dispute, but it's actually true. It's written down there in black and white. It's not hard to see.
So that's the Constitution of Principal Councils in England, and
Yeah, you're looking for section 2 and paragraphs 1, 2 and 3, especially 3.
is it this here?
Yeah.
So let's just bring that a bit up there. For every district there shall be a council consisting of a chairman and councillors, and the council shall have all such functions as are vested in them by this act or otherwise. Where a council mentioned in subsection 1 and 2 above are operating executive arrangements which will involve a mayor and cabinet executive, the council shall consist of an elected mayor and chairman and councillors. So it doesn't sort of say they are is this?
Yeah, in section 3 it does. It says they're all
3.
corporate bodies, yeah.
Oh yeah, here we go. Each council mentioned in subsections 1 or 2 shall be a body corporate.
Yeah.
There's the words.
Yeah, there
By the name the county council or the district council, as the case may be, with the addition of the name of the particular county and district. So Worthing County Council or Sussex County Council would be in Worthing District Council.
Portsmouth District Council, Portsmouth City
Exactly.
Council. Yeah, they're all the same. They're all corporations.
Right. So there it is. I mean, that's damning evidence.
Well, the information's there for people to see. It's
Yeah.
not difficult, but people have been misled by their
People
parents.
don't get. I mean, at school you don't get taught any of this. You're not given an inquiring mind. You're being told how to think,
Yeah.
what to think, and
Yeah.
then you grow up, and you assume. And we've given the responsibility back to the governments and the councils to do all this for us, and we assume they are acting in our best interests. And as we have seen, clearly they are not.
Yeah, so your parents and grandparents have got to take partial responsibility, having misguided you somewhat. Not through a malicious act, I have to say, but it's just through what they were taught prior to 73.
Yeah.
But the 73 Administration of Justice Act is fascinating because this is when Edward Heath stepped in and committed treason against the government, against the Crown and against the people, which again is checkable. And when he did that, as we said, he removed the Queen's sovereignty, so she was no longer regal. She was just the head of the corporation and has been since 73, which again, as we said, Charles cannot be king because his mother was not queen. And William and Catherine cannot follow suit either because Charles is not king. So we're sort of in limbo currently. We don't have a king or queen or a royal family per se.
So, I mean, it's all very well one saying these things, but everyone else, the majority of people are going along believing the lie, the fraud and all of that.
Yep.
How do we turn, I mean, other than exposing it in programs like this, of course, how do we demand that? Can we use that in court?
Absolutely. Yeah. I've got a couple of court cases currently, and I've got a couple of friends who are going through the same process as your friend. And we're bringing up these acts and statutes, which are not acts and statutes, and we're challenging council tax, and we're having a bit of success with it. This is early days for this stuff. Although it's been information that's been out there, it's new to me. But again, Ian Stewart has known this stuff for quite some time, and he's had multiple successful court cases using this information. The other thing that I'd like to say while I remember is, when you get a liability order through these fake courts, they're not sealed.
Right.
They are stamped by a rubber stamp, and that's not a seal. It's a rubber stamp. And
anybody could make
could make a rubber stamp. You can get them off a place in London called stampit.co.uk, not advertising, if they want to send me any money.
But if you want your liability
your liability order paid,
just go there and have it made up, call yourself a corporation.
You can get a stamp in there for £25, and they will make you any stamp you want, and you can be anything you want.
Yes.
So these stamps are not official seals. And the other interesting thing that we've found is the judges are not signing the liability orders. Can you imagine signing 7,243 liability orders in an afternoon? It's just not going to happen. Plus, it's illegal for them to do so because they are personally responsible if they sign them, which they don't.
So now it's interesting you say that because, and actually I was just going to bring that up on the show, if I can just quickly find the file, because I've been sent some of these. I think this is one.
Yeah, that's one. I've seen you posting that prior.
Yeah, let's just have a quick look at this. And so this, I mean, the interesting thing about this is that there's no address. Oh, you can't see all of it. I need to just move that down a fraction.
Yeah, technical hitch.
Where's it gone? Here it is.
Ether.
Can I move that down? Oh, here it is. There we are. Let me move that down there. So there's no addressee.
Yep.
It doesn't say to whom it is.
Yep.
There's no address. There's no address of where it's come. Other than just the name of the so-called magistrates' court.
Yep.
And then there's no real case detail in here.
No.
There's just a date.
Yeah.
And then it's got a squiggle of a signature which may be unidentifiable, and it just says Justice of the Peace.
Yeah. So when you look at that, anybody could have written that. It's not crown-headed, it's not stamped, it's not sealed, it's not signed. So if it doesn't come with a seal and a signature on it, it's not a legal document. That could have came from the butcher.
Exactly.
Yes.
Or a prank from a kid at school.
Yeah, anybody could have done that. A 2-year-old could have done that. It's shocking.
Well, they'd be amazed if a 2-year-old did that.
Children nowadays are quite advanced.
They are if they're homeschooled.
Yeah, they are if they're homeschooled.
Just say that. Oops. So right, let's. So that's fascinating what you said there. So now this is the one I got confused about.
Yeah, this is the one that they love to use.
Yeah.
Now, because it's after 73, it's not valid. But I'm sure there'll be barristers out there are others available, who will tell you that it's actually true, and it's not. It's false. And not only that, they know it's false. Because there's no way that they've went through the bar without knowing that Edward Heath took us out of into the E.
I mean, I would love to actually hear what you've said rebutted by one of these and proof that did not happen.
I'm sure that a certain person might get around to it, but other barristers are available. So I'd like to know what he says as well. I've asked him multiple questions and he's refused to answer any of my questions publicly.
Yes.
So again, I'd like to see him if he would publicly address the issues of what we've raised today.
And they are important issues, and it is interesting that very few. I mean, I have invited Daniel, the black belt barrister, on the show, and he said he'd think about it.
Yeah,
so
that's fine.
That's perfectly laudable position to be in.
Yep.
And I know, obviously, he's got his channel, and people can take what he says as he says it is not legal advice, and we're not offering legal advice. We're all doing this and entertainment purposes only, whatever that means.
Yep.
So, right, let's see where we go from here. So but that local government act, that's the thing that is all accounts, as I said earlier, that's what they all throw at you, and but it doesn't really mean very much.
Well, it doesn't mean anything. In law,
Right.
it means nothing. After 73, it means absolutely nothing, and it's just another bit of paper with.
But even if it did, I mean, just the concept that any corporation can just say, well, you live in that property, we're going to charge you come what may, because there's a bit of legislation that says we can.
Yeah, but it's not legislation, is it? It's just paper. It's just papers with words on. It's just toilet paper.
Right. So let's move on then to other things.
Oh, this is fascinating as well. I found this fascinating, which Portsmouth City Council have denied in writing in the past 3 days to me, which is another pork pie on behalf of Portsmouth City Council. So when you look at sortcodes.co.uk and you type in your council tax reference number into the search bar where it doesn't say sort code, you put in the sort code, which is 384010, I think, off the top of my head. Is that right?
I think you're right.
It's there, it's up there. It's at 83083210. And then my council tax reference number, it's on the top line where it says GB.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, see above it?
Oh, yes. This
Yeah,
one.
right. So that's it's the sort code's there. It's 0. Is it 08?
The sort code
Yeah,
is...
starts after the T.
Yeah, 08, and then...
Yeah, and then that's my council tax reference number. Now, when you put that into that search engine, it brings you back to the fact that your council tax is not local taxation. It's actually directly paid to HMRC, which does away with the Local Government Act. It does away with the Local Government Finance Act, because it's not a local tax, it's a government tax.
Let's actually do that, shall we? Let's go to that
website
and punch that in.
Yep. So it's sortcodes.co.uk.
Because I have done this on the show before, actually.
Have you?
Yeah, somebody. What is it? Sort code.
Sortcodes.co.uk.
.co.uk. Fumbling with my fingers here. We're having tried. What have I done? Sort codes, presumably.
Yeah.
Let's try that.
There we go. There, it's found it. So in the sort code, you put 083210.
083210.
And that brings you up to the HMRC direct account. And in there, you would need to put my account reference number, which you should have it on the screen somewhere.
Yeah, I've got it over here.
You can copy and paste it, maybe.
Which is 102.12.078. Let's go back to the other one.
Doing this live.
102.12.078.
Without a safety net.
And we'll validate that for you.
So there it's coming up there, and there it tells you right there. It go right down to the bottom, and it will say X faster payments. Yeah, go back up to the section that you had. And there we are. Government banking, HMRC direct taxation.
So that's not going to your local government at all.
It isn't.
Your local government, your council.
Your council. It's not going to the council.
So
the Government Act of 72 is completely false. The Local Finance Act of 92 is completely false. And the government themselves do not hide the fact. Because if you go into the House of Commons library and type in revenue for 22 to 23, it shows you that they took £42 billion in council tax straight to the direct government consolidation fund. They don't hide it, but people don't look for it. It's fascinating.
Yes. Although now I have had people write to their council and say, does this go to the central fund?
And they say no.
And they say no, of course it doesn't. It goes to us. And they're blatantly lying, or these councillors just do not know.
Oh, they do know. They're blatantly lying. They know that it's going out to them because it comes back to them a bit lighter than it went.
Right, with attached
things
to do.
Of course it does.
You know, like more cameras, 5G.
The government
LTNs.
take their slice out so that their friends can all get a nice little contract somewhere for something. And if it doesn't even work, it doesn't matter because they've still supplied a faulty item if you're looking at COVID stuff.
Exactly, a very faulty item, which is causing all sorts of problems. And it was good, just to reiterate, Andrew Bridgen the other day in his crossbench debate with 17, I think they were MPs, who, the ball is now rolling as this information about the, the medical intervention that we all well, not all of us partook in, and how it's causing great harm. Anyway, so what are we looking at over here now?
So this is a letter that I sent to the Professional Standards Department of Hampshire Police, showing that fraud was being committed, that people were being assaulted. There's multiple complaints on there, and they're not interested. They're not interested in the fact that they're a corporation. They're not interested in the fact that they're Freemasons that run Hampshire Police, and I have that confirmed because I've wrote at least 15 emails and letters to Hampshire Police calling them out on it, and they refused to deny it. And when you've refused to deny something, you acquiesce. So it's true. It's true because Freemasons run Hampshire Constabulary.
There we go. And of course, if all the truth was known, they run quite a lot more.
I think you'll find they run the whole country.
So that's interesting there. You've written here that crime involves a £2.5 billion driving test candidate fraud, which we had you on the show.
Yeah, and that was that was the show 12 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And that's now up to 3 billion.
And is it really?
Yeah, it's up to 3 billion. It's 500 million a year.
And another
50 million a year, sorry.
The 865 million council tax fraud committed by your annual contractor employer. And that's just Portsmouth.
That's just Portsmouth, yeah, it's fascinating.
And so they haven't replied.
No, they won't. They won't ever reply. The interesting thing that I found out this morning, I was looking at a bit of information. The UK government PLC stroke, whatever they want to call themselves, limited company, they make £2 million a minute through local taxation in the United Kingdom. Now, when you consider there's only 68 million people in the United Kingdom, the taxation that we are paying is through the roof. £2 million a minute they make, which means they could give every person in the United Kingdom £1 million and still be left with a hefty pot.
Wow. I mean, that's incredible. And then if people had seen the interview I did with Chris Coverdale, in which he shows the legislation and the UN Charter agreement that actually when you pay your taxes, and it's proved in your council tax, as you just demonstrated, that it goes to the central government through the Consolidate Fund, you are funding
terrorism.
The government who is...
funding terrorism.
And didn't Sunak shoot
me now.
Shoot me now, Nick. Did he not just put a few £1 billion towards Ukraine?
Yeah, I wonder who he asked permission for that for. He never asked me.
Well, never asked me. And isn't that and if that is spending money to give more arms, and with so many other things that we've seen in recent times in which the government have been supporting acts of terrorism, which results, knowing, I mean, this is the worst thing, is they know that this will result in innocent men, women and children being murdered as collateral in these wars. And, of course, it then means that if we pay those taxes, we are, by direct... acquiescing, we are funding terrorism ourselves. And then there's the Aiding and Abetting Act of something like 1893 or 1911 or whatever it is, that says if you aid and abet these things, you are just as guilty.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it means we unless we all want to go to prison, and there's not enough space for it, and I'm sure they're building them, we shouldn't be paying these taxes.
No, and the interesting thing when you really research the history of Ukraine, it's the base for the Fourth Reich. The Third Reich allegedly died out in 1949, but it never did. The Third Reich survived because a lot of German scientists, etc., were taken to America and around the world, Argentina, etc., etc., etc. So we're now dealing with the Fourth Reich. This is not the Third Reich, and it's a different war that we're fighting with these people. It's more paperwork-based and legislation-based than it is a head-on conflict.
Yes, a war, I suppose, of the mind, and as you say, paperwork, rather than... Certainly here in the West, we're not having the bombs dropped on us. But
not
anyway,
not
so
yet.
What have we got next up?
So against this is Portsmouth City Council, and again I've wrote to them in reference council tax fraud, and they refused up until last week to respond. But when they did respond, they said they were doing nothing wrong, that they didn't see anything wrong with what they were doing, that they didn't not tell people not to attend, which we exposed on your last show with the taped answering service message saying if you'd received a summons you did not have to attend. They've denied that exists, and they've actually changed their answering machine service so it doesn't say that you don't have to attend.
Right.
So up until that time they were committing that offence, and now they've changed their mind and trying to hide it.
It is just outrageous.
So this is a fascinating one. This is a letter to Penny Mordaunt MP. Now, again, she has refused to deal with any of my complaints based on the fact that I am not her constituent, which is fascinating.
Does she not? She holds what position? Because she was head of the House or something, wasn't she?
She was, and she's also the MP for Portsmouth North, which is where the driving test fraud originated.
Right.
And she refused to deal with the matter. And if you can see the crime reference numbers and the commissioner or ICO commissioner reference number, she just point blank refused to help. And she's obviously part of the system. She's part of the cabal, if you like, if that's the right terminology.
Yes.
And she's not doing anything about it. So that's MP Portsmouth North, Penny Mordaunt, not helping whatsoever. She's going to let it just run its course. And the next one down is MP for Portsmouth South. It's Mr. Stephen Morgan, and again he sent me a reply saying the council do nothing wrong. Here's the legislation of 1992. They have never said to people not to attend. They've never stopped people in the building saying that they don't have to attend. They've never threatened anyone with jail. So he's another one who's stuck his head in the sand along with Penny.
I mean, surely these things cannot be held up, because anybody who's got the liability order, this fake liability order from the council that says you do not have to attend or do not attend. I mean, in the case of my friend, it says, you need to check with the claimant first before you can go to court, which is it's a nonsense. It becomes a kangaroo court if you've got to check with the claimant rather than an independent justice system that's there to do justice and seem to be doing justice, and yet of course it seemed to be doing fraudulent activities.
So we as a team of auditors went to Weston-super-Mare about 4 months ago to see how they audit their magistrates court and to see what the process was there. And the process was fascinating. They had a court with no magistrates and no judge. And when we went there, the court was done over the telephone.
What possible reason could they give for doing that over the telephone, firstly? And is that even... how do you know who's on the end of the telephone?
Well, when we went there, it said on the client's paperwork that he didn't have to attend, and if he did want to attend, he had to call prior to and make the appointment, as your other friend has done. So we just went along just off the off chance just to see what the process was. And when we got there was a court that was empty. And it was a telephone hearing, and anybody could have been on the end of the telephone, as you said. There were no magistrates and there were no judges, and the people who didn't turn up were all granted liability orders. But I'd like to know how they knew if they did turn up or didn't turn up, because there was no one there apart from one clerk to say that you were or were not there. So I don't understand how that's even possible to do that as a court.
Yes.
So it's obviously not a court. The whole thing's fraudulent. It's false.
And the more people know this, the more people can just the simple logic of it. They don't have to know all the acts and statutes or the dates and things. They just have to realise that actually, if there's nobody to hear you in your presence, and they're on the end of the phone. I mean, we all know what scam calls are like. Yeah. We all know that somebody will ring up from, I don't know, Microsoft and say, we just like to sort of tweak with your computer and put a virus on it, thanks very much. And you go, oh yeah, no problem at all, you carry on, mate, and fleece me out of some money. How do we know that the judge on the other end is a judge and not a scammer? I mean, unless they're in court and you've got all the proper proceedings going on, you are being scammed, aren't you?
Well, it could be anyone at the end of the phone. It could be Hong Kong Fooey, the mild-mannered janitor.
There you go.
We just don't know. This letter that we've got on the screen is from a constituent belonging to Penny Mordaunt, believe it or not. So the lady lives in Penny Mordaunt's constituency, and as far as I'm aware, she got the same response I got. She wasn't interested. So, and you read that screen, it says that she was They attended court, but they were told not to attend if summoned. So the council are summoning people to a fake court. The court is not a court of law, and the liability orders are not signed and sealed, but yet bailiffs are enforcing liability orders that are not. Again, this is Stephen Morgan's response, which I got the other day, 14th of the 12th, so it came last month, sorry. And if you read through that, people can read it through at their leisure if you just scroll slowly, I would imagine. It just says that basically the council have done nothing wrong. And through his inquiries, he found that the council were doing nothing wrong. But the person who's got the information in regards to his inquiries is me.
Right.
And he's never once asked for the information. So he carried out an investigation by asking the council their interpretation, and he sent me the Local Government Finance Act of 1992, which I already had. So the thing that he did, which was an investigation, was not, because I've got all the information he requires, and he never asked for it.
That is, I mean, it's just incredible, isn't it, that we're in a situation like this with so much fraud going on, and they blatantly just think. I mean, I think they must be trained that if you just simply say, "Oh no, it's not that. It's we're doing everything we possibly can to help you," that you can't see them licking their lips and rubbing their hands and blatantly lying, it seems to me.
Well, when the 7,243 people were granted liability orders, that was plus £95 costs. So if someone does that as a quick equation, I think it's 700,000, which the council made in 15 minutes.
£700,000.
Well, if you do 7,246 times £95, it's roughly in the region of 700,000. I don't know off the top of my head, but somebody can calculate it.
Yes, well, we can...
Yeah, you can calculate it there. So, and that's just the costs for the court fees for that day, or the hiring of the court for that day.
I'm going to do this again live. So
this will be interesting.
We can get the actual number. What do we want?
It's 7,200.
Hang on a minute, I've got to get calculator up.
Can you not do it off the top of your head?
No. We've all been trained not to be able to do
well,
that.
That's true.
That's the thing.
That's,
right, we've got a calculator on the screen. So what
7,243
7,243
times £95
times 95 equals...
So £688,085 for 15 minutes work. It's not bad money if you can... that's not a bad job if you can get it.
Yeah, I don't think YouTube pay me anything...
Well, I think they should.
Anything like it.
If you're putting your life in your hands the way you're doing it currently, I think you...
well, I know.
You might need that money.
Any time I could have that knock at the door.
Well, you can never tell.
But they haven't turned up. So before we finish off on this, people... So I'm in that situation, I mean, with a entrapment in a ULEZ thing.
Yeah.
And, of course, mine is slightly unique in as much as they... It turns out, and people don't know this, but it turns out that when I bought my vehicle, my name, obviously my driving license and my birth certificate and all that are all the same.
Yep.
But when whoever it was who typed it in at the DVLA, they spelt my name wrong.
Yep.
So when I drove into Bath and it flashed up, "Oh, you've come into this zone," not that I knew, of course. The letters were generated, "Oh, you haven't paid this bill," and they came to me with my name spelt wrong. Yeah. And I know that the post thing is one of the highest courts in the land that you must not open at somebody else's mail, and that's a hugely fine, and you can go to prison for it, apparently, technically.
Technically.
So I didn't. So I just returned it sender, said, okay, this is not me, giving them opportunity to correct the error. What I didn't know was, of course, that the lady, or I say a lady, it might not have been a lady, it might have been a man. That's gross on my part. But whoever typed it in had spelt my name wrong. But as a result of that, when the bailiffs came, of course, they keep coming and they ask for this person in this spelt way. And I can legitimately say, without having to go into the legal fiction business, that's just not me, because it's not my spelling of my name. You've got that wrong, and until you've got the correct spelling, I can't engage with you. Not that I actually engage with them at all anymore. But So anyway, that's just a by the way on my case. But people will get these liability orders, and the chances are they will have these bailiffs, not bailiffs, enforcement officers,
enforcement
agents now coming on the door to collect money. What can people do to not acquiesce? Because if the whole system is fraud, then why should they be paying the cost of whatever it is that's fraudulently being asked? Plus, as you say, the court costs, which is the bunts on top. Why should they be doing it? And is there anything that people can do to stop that?
So there's several things we need to look at. First of all is the original offence, which was not an offence, because A, it didn't flash up. So you didn't know that you were having done something wrong. And B, in regards to your specific case and a case in London, unless there's a fee schedule underneath the signs, they are not lawfully enforceable.
Oh, right.
If you drive into a fresh air or clean air zone, it has to have a schedule of fees for you to acquiesce to that fee.
Yes.
And if you don't know what the fee is, then it's not enforceable.
That is fascinating.
There's a chap in London who's having multiple successes, helping himself and others by challenging this fact, and the courts have agreed that he's correct.
Right.
If there's no fee schedule, there is no offence.
So if you go over the Dartford Tunnel, all of that is so obvious. You know, it tells you the fees.
It tells you the fee, a car, a motorbike, a bus.
Yeah, so and they do that before the last turn off, so you can go, oh, crikey, I haven't got the money, or I don't want to pay it. I'll go the long way round and pay more in petrol. But at least you know.
You know.
But going into Bath, and
Well, it doesn't have to be Bath. It could be any place in the country.
Well, I know. I'm just thinking in my particular case. But if you can't see the sign and you can't see those tariffs and it's not bleeding obvious...
No fee schedule, no crime has been committed, no offence has been committed, and it's not enforceable. It's not required to be paid. People just have to challenge it more.
Yes.
In regards to the bailiff who comes to your door, the original liability order is not true, so therefore he has no power. And even if it was a true summons, he has no power. You have to allow a bailiff to come into your property, and if you do not, he cannot. So if you don't let them in, they cannot come in. Having said that, certain police forces throughout the country are aiding and abetting enforcement agents.
And they did that with me.
They've done it multiple times, and that is against the law. It's aiding and abetting another corporation. So the police have got a lot to answer for in this country at this particular time. And again, they're not accountable because they're a corporation.
So, and the other thing, as you say, they're a corporate. But so in my case, Bath Council would have issued the fine.
Yep.
And they would have sold it to the... Do you think they would sell it to
Was it a liability order, or was it just straight from the council?
It's just, well, and I don't know because
you haven't seen the man.
I haven't seen the thing because it wasn't addressed to me.
Plus, he never showed you as far as.
And he never showed. He just sent me this. He gave me this bit of paper, and he said, "We demand this money, and you need to pay it."
Yeah.
Now I didn't know him from Adam. Even though his name was Mr. Adam, which is very curious. No first name, by the way, just Mr. Adam.
So I was semi-present at the particular time we're talking about, and I did record the conversation, as you know. And he was asked multiple times to produce any paper or computer evidence that he had, and he refused. Because he didn't have anything.
And the police who were there said he didn't need it.
But the police were also asked to produce their warrant cards, which they must do. They must show you their warrant card if they're on duty, and they refused to.
One did. Only one.
Okay.
Very reluctantly.
Yeah, very reluctantly.
But at first he wasn't going to.
Yeah, but the other two refused, and that's against their policy and procedures, so they have to.
So it's a minefield, all of this, but effectively what you're saying is the whole system is a fraud.
Yep.
And we've got to stand up on our rights and say, hang on a minute, until you correct everything, we're not acquiescing to any of your nonsense.
Until the people of England and broader, when it starts to take effect on April 1st, stop paying illegal taxes, we will get nowhere unless people start to unite and say, no, we're not doing it. And that's the only way forward, because the corporation is so corrupt. We have to dry up the money tree and stop them giving money to their friends, cousins, relatives, and to Ukraine. It's fraudulent. It's against God's law You cannot pay to kill children. That's outrageous. And as Chris Coverdale says, you cannot pay that money. So I suggest people take a look at their conscience and ask themselves, do they really want to pay to kill 1-year-olds, 2-year-olds, unborns, mothers? It's horrendous what's going on. And you are actually funding terrorism, and it's got to stop.
It has got to stop, and it will stop. And if we, as you say, gather together and go and do our own due diligence, don't take our words for this. Yep. This is just entertainment. But if you take it as a guide and you're curious and you think, maybe there's something in this, all of this, as you've said, is easily to find online.
Yeah, it doesn't take long.
And, don't take your advice from YouTube channels. Go and look at the legislation and all of that. And then there's a chance. Rob, it's been fantastic to have you in the show again.
Yeah, another 10 weeks if I survive.
Yeah. Have you got anything happening that we can look forward to, tasty morsels in the future?
My £3 billion driving test fraud has turned a bit of an avenue, which is fascinating, but I'll go into it. I'm a bit legally bound to say what I'm doing, but it's they cannot beat me. Since 2020, March 2020, I've been holding my own against the London barristers, and they haven't beat me yet. And I don't think they will beat me, because the truth itself is the truth, and you can't change the truth or hide the truth. The actual truth of the matter is, since 1950, and it's fascinating, it's 74 years, the driving test pass rate in this country was set by the Department of Transport at 49.5%, which means 50% of the people who are on the road currently don't have a valid driving licence. But the other thing that I was thinking about the other day was, what 50% do they know is true and what 50% is false? Because they'll never admit it, which makes them all false. Because you've got to treat them as all false. You can't treat 50% as correct and 50% as false unless they kept a record of it, which makes every single driving licence issued since 1950 fraudulent.
Well, that's me done then.
That's me done as well.
Rob, thank you for coming in. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you. I hope you'll come back.
Yeah, will do if I survive.
And, you'll survive.
I'll keep my head down.
I think you're a survivor.
If I see a dot in my forehead, I'm going to duck quick.
Yes. Well, there we are, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Lots of homework there, I think, for people to go and do. But in the meantime, I'll be back with more monologues and more wonderful guests, but from Rob and myself. Thank you, Rob.
Yeah, do some research, folks. It's all there to be seen.
And we will see you again next time. And if I can find the switchy off button, I will do that.
It's the one that's marked TikTok.
That's right. Till next time. Bye-bye.